Stolarz continues to be absolutely fantastic for the Leafs in net, as last night he picked up his first shutout as a member of the Maple Leafs, blanking the Boston Bruins. The 2-year deal Toronto signed Stolarz to in free agency is already looking like an absolute steal, so we're going to talk about Stolarz a little bit in this video, along with some other offseason additions that I believe are already looking like steals early on in the season. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so if there's any players that I don't talk about in today's video that you would have included, be sure to let me know who those players are and why down below in the comments. And if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And with that all being said, let's go ahead and start off with the player that we've already talked about, Anthony Stolarz, goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, even before this season started, really as soon as Stolarz signed that 2-year $5 million deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the general consensus was the Maple Leafs got very good value. Last season, as a member of the Florida Panthers, statistically, Anthony Stolarz was one of the best goaltenders in the entire NHL. The sample size just wasn't the biggest because he was playing behind Sergei Bobrovsky, and obviously Bobrovsky was getting the majority of the starts. And so far this season, Stolarz has picked up right where he left off last season, and in my opinion has already solidified himself as the Maple Leafs' #1 goaltender over Joseph Woll. Last night's victory was Stolarz' 5th of the season, improving his record to 5-2-2 to go along with a 2.12 goals against average, a .928 save percentage, and a 10.27 goals saved above expected, which is the 3rd highest in the entire NHL, only behind Lukas Dostal and Igor Shesterkin. Those are Vezina caliber numbers. Now, obviously, I don't think anybody expects him to play at this high of a level all season long, but at least so far, he's definitely exceeded expectations, and I'm very curious to see how he's able to perform throughout the course of the season because he's never been a guy that has had to carry a huge workload. The most amount of games he's played in a single season is 28. You have to imagine he's going to play a lot more than 28 games this season with the Maple Leafs, so I'm definitely curious to see if his performance is going to be able to hold up as he gets into the 40-45 games played range. Sticking with the Toronto Maple Leafs here, another player that I think is giving them very good value is Max Pacioretty, who was invited to training camp on a PTO, but everybody knew the Maple Leafs were going to end up giving him a contract, and that is exactly what happened. Max Pacioretty signed a very cheap 1-year deal with the Leafs, and for a 35-year-old who has had 2 Achilles tears in recent years, I think he's looked pretty solid. So far through 11 games, Pacioretty is up to 6 points, and he has the 2nd highest 5-on-5 expected goals for percentage on the Maple Leafs at almost 60%. They're playing really well with Pacioretty on the ice. Now, obviously, they aren't using him in the largest of roles, but I do think Pacioretty has done a good job, especially for a guy making almost league minimum, of coming in and replacing some of the production in Toronto's middle six that they lost with Tyler Bertuzzi leaving in free agency. Pacioretty's actually outscoring Bertuzzi so far this season at 6 points to 4 points, although Tyler Bertuzzi does play on the Blackhawks, so we'll cut him some slack. Next up, we have Tanner Pearson of the Vegas Golden Knights, who, like Max Pacioretty, was invited to training camp on a PTO and ultimately ended up signing a cheap 1-year deal. One of my biggest concerns heading into the season when it came to the Vegas Golden Knights was their offensive depth, but so far this season, it hasn't been an issue whatsoever. They already have 6 players on the roster who have hit double digits in points, and you also have guys like Kolesar and Waugh with 8 points apiece, and somebody like Tanner Pearson who's already up to 7. He only had 13 total last season in 54 games with the Canadiens. Definitely not insane offensive output, but for a guy that's only playing 4th line minutes and making just $775K, I think he's given Vegas pretty solid value so far. Moving on now, we have another member of the Vegas Golden Knights, Victor Olofsson. I was going back and forth on if I should include him in the video or not because he's been injured. He's only appeared in 4 games this season, but I figured what the hell, we'll throw him in here anyways because in those 4 games, he did have 3 goals, 2 of which came on the power play. He's a player that obviously has some familiarity playing on the man advantage with Jack Eichel from their time together in Buffalo, and this is another one of those signings similar to what I said about Anthony Stolarz, where even before the season started, pretty much as soon as this contract was signed, everybody knew that Vegas got pretty good value here. He's a guy who has reached the 20 goal mark in 2 out of the last 3 seasons and 3 total times in his career, but ultimately ended up having to settle for a cheap 1-year prove-it deal due to the fact that his production completely fell off of a cliff last season. Heading into this season, he was a pretty obvious bounce-back candidate, and again, he's been injured, so he's only played in 4 games, but in those 4 games, he's off to a a good start with 3 goals. Still considered week to week right now with an injury. Hopefully it isn't too long before we see him return to the lineup for Vegas, but even if he only ends up playing 55 or 60 games this season, I still wouldn't be surprised at all to see him score 20. Moving on now to the next player on my list, we have Cam Talbot, goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings goaltending situation has been pretty chaotic over the last couple of seasons. Last year, despite starting the season as the Red Wings' third string goaltender, after just a couple of months, Alex Lanen emerged as the Red Wings' number 1 in net. And then this season, the Red Wings once again started the year carrying 3 goaltenders in the NHL. They rolled out Ville Husso as the opening night starter, and now not even 1 full month into the season, Ville Husso's in the American Hockey League, while Cam Talbot has really been the guy that has stepped up. Through his first 6 appearances, Cam Talbot has a record of 3-1-1. He's responsible for 7 of the Red Wings' 11 points on the season. He's got a goals against average of 2.73, and he's tied for 5th in the entire NHL in save percentage with a 923. It would be absolutely massive for the Red Wings if Cam Talbot is able to maintain this level of performance throughout the season and provide them with some much needed stability and consistency in net. Now, Cam Talbot is 37 years old, so he's obviously not going to be the long-term answer for the Red Wings in net, but fingers crossed he can continue to give them above average goaltending throughout the duration of this contract until by the end of it, hopefully somebody like Sebastian Cossa is ready to come in and take the reins. Speaking of the Red Wings, moving on now to the next player on my list, we have Jake Walman, defenseman for the San Jose Sharks, who was traded from Detroit to San Jose in the summer, along with a second-round draft pick in exchange for future considerations. This was a pure cap dump for the Red Wings. They got out from the final 2 years of his contract that carries a cap hit of $3.4 million per season. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. Everybody knows where I stand on the trade and the decision to send Walman to San Jose. Obviously, Steve Yzerman had his reasons, but seeing how well Jake Walman has done so far this season for the San Jose Sharks, it definitely makes it sting a little bit more. Jake Walman has been a legit top pairing guy for San Jose so far this season. The only defenseman on the team averaging more ice time than him is Cody Ceci, and it's only by a few seconds. He's had a couple of 3-point games and is up to 9 total points on the season, and actually leads the San Jose Sharks in 5-on-5 expected goals for percentage at over 52%. Very impressive numbers so far this season for Jake Walman, especially considering the fact that he's doing this on the San Jose Sharks. Now, he was a healthy scratch in their most recent game, and it was a coach's decision, and that's all the information we got, which has led to a lot of speculation from fans. There were rumors when he was traded from Detroit that it wasn't just a pure cap dump and that there were some other reasons maybe as to why Detroit wanted to move on from Walman. All of that aside, though, when he's been in the lineup so far this season for the Sharks, he's been fantastic, and considering the fact that they didn't only get him for free, they also were given a second-round draft pick to take him on, I would definitely say the early returns on this trade are looking pretty damn good for San Jose. Moving on now, next up we have Stefan Noesen of the New Jersey Devils, who signed a 3-year deal with a cap hit of $2.75 million per season with New Jersey as an unrestricted free agent. Stefan Noesen really carved himself out a nice role in Carolina over the last few seasons as a guy who didn't play a ton of minutes at 5-on-5, but was more used as a power play specialist, someone that you put in that net front position on the top unit, and he was really productive in that role for Carolina. He put up a career-high 37 points in 81 games last season, but it definitely looks like Noesen is going to set a new career high this season, as he's already up to 13 points in 15 games. He has seen his ice time per game increased by over 2 full minutes from last season to this season. He's still being utilized in that net front position on the power play, and he's really thriving right now for New Jersey. He actually has more points than Jack Hughes so far, which is a pretty insane stat. Next up, we have Philip Broberg, a defenseman for the St. Louis Blues, who obviously came over to St. Louis from Edmonton in the offseason thanks to an offer sheet. Unfortunately, he was recently injured, and it's being reported that he's set to miss around 4 to 6 weeks, which sucks because he was in the midst of having a breakthrough season with the Blues. He had a point in each of his first 6 games of the season, is up to 9 total points in the 12 games he's appeared in, and all but one of those points have came at even strength. The offensive talent that was such a big reason why he was a top 10 pick in the 2019 NHL draft has been on full display. It's definitely looking like the St. Louis Blues have a keeper in Philip Broberg. He should be a key fixture on their blue line for a very long time, which is nice to see for the St. Louis Blues because their decision to offer sheet him and Dylan Holloway was seen as a pretty risky move by some people. Moving on now to the next player, we have another defenseman here, Shane Gostisbehere of the Carolina Hurricanes, who as an unrestricted free agent in the summer signed a 3-year deal with Carolina that has a cap hit of $3.2 million per season. And I remember when this signing was announced, I was pretty surprised. I figured Shane Gostisbehere would get more considering the fact that he was coming off of a 56-point season with the Red Wings. Maybe it shouldn't be a huge surprise that he only got 3.2 mil per season because he isn't the most versatile player. He doesn't kill penalties. He isn't the greatest defensively, but his offensive impacts are undeniable, and when used in the right role, he is a very, very impactful player. That role being playing sheltered minutes at 5-on-5, but letting him go out there and do his thing on the power play, which we saw Detroit do last season, and we are seeing Carolina do with him this season. Through his first 11 games, he's already up to 9 points, looking like he could surpass his total of 56 points last season, and he has a 5-on-5 expected goals for percentage of 73.8, which is absolutely absurd. And now finally, finishing up today's video with the last player on my list, we have Kevin Lankinen, goaltender for the Vancouver Canucks. Lankinen signed a 1-year deal with the Canucks for just $875,000, pretty much right before the preseason began, to add some depth to Vancouver's goaltending situation. And man, does it ever look like a fantastic signing already, as who really knows where Vancouver would be without Kevin Lankinen right now. Obviously, we all knew they were going to be starting the season without Thatcher Demko, but I think the majority of people figured that Arthur Shelovs would be the guy to carry them through that period without Thatcher Demko and get the majority of starts. Shelovs obviously had some big moments for them down the stretch and in the playoffs last season, but so far this season the guy's been borderline unplayable. Thankfully for the Canucks, Kevin Lankinen has really stepped up, and he's been unbelievable. 6-0-2, he's yet to lose in regulation, a save percentage of .923, and a goals against average of just 2.03. Not only has he taken the reins as the Canucks #1 with Thatcher Demko on the shelf, I think he has definitely solidified himself as their go-to backup when Thatcher Demko returns to the lineup. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those were some off-season additions that, in my opinion, are already looking like steals. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I always want to know what you guys are thinking, so if there's any player that I didn't talk about in today's video that you would have included, be sure to let me know who those players are and why down below in the comments. If you made it all this way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does actually help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.